The economic desperation in Florida has got so bad that it's become every evening's news to read the sad stories about people who couldn't take it any longer. People in Florida can't find a way out from the economical woes that the state is facing, and every night when you turn on the TV, you hear about stories like these. I think at this point people understand what's wrong with living in the state of Alabama, but over the last few days I've been noticing a lot of comments on our channel by people telling me we know it's bad in Alabama, but we can't handle the economic situation we have in Florida. I'm not going to tell you the situation is sweet in Florida because it really isn't. People are losing their homes, getting evicted, becoming homeless. Insurance is costing some people more than their freaking mortgage. And the state's economy right now is in one of the worst economical downward spirals that has ever taken place in the United States. Florida really is going to crap. For many people, living in Florida feels like being stuck on the side of the road, a road that's not moving too fast to begin with. For many, moving to Alabama isn't something they want to do or they're excited about. I think they know the challenges that are going to await them if they go through with that decision. It's a choice that they feel that they have no other option but to take, because here in the state of Florida, they're going nowhere. On top of that, living in Florida is starting to be like living in Alabama because of how extreme the state has become when it comes to its politics. These are just some of the reasons why people are deciding to move to Alabama from Florida, mainly affordability. This is a road and a journey that I went on myself about 5 years ago, and it was the worst decision that I ever made in my life. At the time, there really wasn't too much information about Alabama on the internet, but today I think most of us have a clear picture of what the problem is, and some of the issues that were plaguing Alabama back then are starting to plague most of the United States right now. At least Florida, to me, feels like it's becoming Alabama. But just in case you don't know, let me refresh your memory or educate you on why moving to Alabama is a bad idea. Now, when I made that decision 5 years ago, everybody told me the same thing. In Alabama, you're going to face racism, as the people there are very backwards. Now, at the time, I didn't really understand what that meant. Living in South Florida, I thought racism was not liking somebody. I didn't understand that racism means that your life is in constant danger all the time, that law enforcement refuses to help you when you're the victim of a crime. In fact, while living in Alabama, I felt like if you were the victim of a crime and you called law enforcement, then you could be a victim of law enforcement as well. If you've never lived in the deep south of the United States, you really don't understand what racism is. You might think that racism is somebody who doesn't like you, and you can just rub that off and keep living. That's not the case in Alabama. In Alabama, racism, hate, and segregation is a matter of safety with everyday life, and there are rules that you have to follow, and if you don't follow those rules, your life will be in danger very quickly. You can have your house burnt down to the ground. You can become a victim of a homicide. You could disappear, or horrible things could start happening to you or your family, and there's nobody around to save you. You might get good advice from neighbors who warn you about the manhunt you're about to undergo when you become a new resident of Alabama, but for the most part, the road is going to be your journey, and those pieces of advice that you get from people trying to protect you are only going to go so far, because at the end of the day, in Alabama, people are heartless, and anybody who comes to Alabama from the outside is viewed as an enemy or a threat. There are good people in Alabama who are going to try to warn you and teach you the ways of the road to try to protect you, but eventually it's going to become your own path and your own journey, and when crap gets real, there's going to be nobody around to save you. Alabama has the third highest homicide mortality rate in the United States. Only the adjacent states of Mississippi and Louisiana are more dangerous. The chances of you becoming a victim of a homicide in Alabama are more than 2 times higher than states like California or Florida. And unlike in those states where many of the victims are people who were part of something that brought them there, in Alabama, it exists that there are random victims. People will literally target you at random for a homicide, may it be for a robbery, or may it just be somebody who doesn't give a crap. Inmates leave the prisons and commit homicides on the outside world. Inmates in the state of Alabama have cell phones and access to technology. Many inmates were even able to leave the prisons so they can commit crimes on the outside world that they will never be a suspect for. It's already been well documented that many of the homicides and house burnings that take place in Alabama are directed by people inside the prisons. And in many cases, they're not just directed, but they're done by people who in theory shouldn't have been in the free world to begin with, because in theory they were inmates. With technology, we've been able to get stories of people who go through the system in Alabama, and it's well established that Alabama has the worst correctional system in the United States. A recent inmate who was famous recently just got out of that system, and he said he had to stab over 100 people in his stay in the Alabama state prisons. Law enforcement is so ineffective that many times criminals laugh about the crimes that they commit on social media, not worried about law enforcement doing anything about it. In other words, not only are you going to become a victim of a crime, but you may also become a laughingstock online as the people who committed the crime laugh about the crime, not having to worry about repercussions from law enforcement. Many individuals have found that while living in Alabama, even if they have evidence for a crime, law enforcement refuses to accept the crime. They don't want to look at the evidence. They dismiss the case. And just because you have evidence like cameras or other type of evidence, law enforcement isn't going to protect you. Having evidence in Alabama means nothing. That's why criminals aren't worried about laughing about the crimes they commit on social media. If you are willing to put your safety in jeopardy to have a few extra cans of beans in the closet or a couple extra dollars in the bank, then I guess Alabama would make sense. But for most of us, our safety and our peace of mind can't be compromised for economical resources. After the comfort and economical opportunity that I left behind in Alabama, and believe it or not, there is plenty of opportunity in Alabama. Economically, this was the best time period of my life. My income nearly doubled as soon as I moved to Alabama. I was working less hours and making more money. Economically, things couldn't have gone better for me. I soon discovered that the reason why people in Alabama have low incomes is because they're backwards, lazy, and don't have any hustle or ambition. You being from South Florida, you're a natural hustler. You're a go-getter. You're a money maker. The system down here has acquainted you with working, hustling, and always making money. The system in Alabama has acquainted people with the notion that if it looks like you're doing too good, you become a target. That's why people that have money in Alabama usually hide it for their safety. You'll literally meet people in Alabama who are worth dozens of millions of dollars, and they'll drive around in a $3,000 or $4,000 truck because they're afraid of people thinking they got money. Because in Alabama, when people see money on you, you instantly become a victim. And the thing is that some of the things that we consider normal here in Florida, something as simple as getting your groceries at Publix, can be seen as something excessive monetarily. Here in Florida, it's a joke. We joke about going to Publix, but that's not a joke in Alabama. While living in Alabama, we eventually got to the point where we do our grocery shopping late in the evening, park our vehicle close to the house so that our neighbors wouldn't see us bringing in Publix bags. Getting our groceries at Publix became an issue for us with our neighbors, as they thought that bringing home a large haul of groceries from Publix was seen as something excessive. Why would you go and get your groceries across town at some expensive market when there's a Dollar General and a gas station that has hot dogs across the street? So living here in South Florida, perhaps economically you're not doing too well, but you probably dress nice, you probably have a nice car, and you probably get your groceries from Publix. Those are things that in Alabama are viewed as obnoxious. They're almost viewed as disrespectful, and they're certain to put a target on your back for criminals. Living here in Florida, every month when we get paid, we make a $500 grocery run, may it be from Publix or from Target, and then we upload it to the internet sometimes so you guys can see the things we're purchasing. Doing something like that in Alabama would be an absolute sentence. You can't flaunt having wealth. You can't just go and make a grocery run because somebody's going to see you at the grocery store and tell your neighbors, I saw these people at the store and they had a full shopping cart. And it's not that your neighbors don't do grocery shopping as well. It's that when they do it, they perhaps do it little by little, or they put it inside a bag or something where you can't see it, because they know that if people see you buying and spending money, it's going to make you an instant target. But basically, the things that you consider normal here in Florida, like getting dressed, getting into a car, and doing some grocery shopping, are moves that you're going to have to make in Alabama with caution. And it's not that opportunities don't exist in Alabama, it's that people here have just become accustomed to doing as little as possible and putting in as little effort into life as is possible. An example is the fact that we had a green garbage can. Our neighbors actually threw a fit over the fact that we had green garbage cans, because you had the option to burn your garbage or you had the option to pay the city $60 a year for garbage. Our neighbors actually tripped up about the fact that we were paying $60 a year to have our garbage hauled away when we could have just burnt our diapers and tampons on the front yard like they did. While living in Alabama, I met a young man who was a subscriber to our channel at the time. Eventually, he received government housing from the state of Alabama in the city of Dothan, and he told me that he had to move out of his free public housing because people were jealous that he got Section 8 housing. In other words, even something as simple as Section 8 housing or a food stamp card can be viewed as something that these people envy. A good example is what's going around the United States now, where people are upset that migrants get food stamps. I don't give a crap if migrants get food stamps. I'm trying to get my groceries from the freaking Whole Foods. I don't give a crap if somebody's getting food stamps. But this is the miserable type of mindset that people have in Alabama, and it's sadly spreading across the United States. See, here in Alabama, envying somebody because they got a food stamp card or envying somebody because they get free Section 8 housing, people actually legitimately trip up about those things because that's the things that they're trying to get. They're trying to get free housing. They're trying to get free food from the government. It's like a communist mindset that people have here, where they want the government to give them everything for free, and they actually get jealous and trip up about stuff that most of us would pass up on. Like, if you told me we're going to give you free Section 8 housing here in Florida, I'd be like, no, I'm good. I want to live in an apartment that's nice, and I don't want to live in Section 8 housing. But in Alabama, people fight for stuff like that. So it's like a miserable mindset that people have, and getting used to that miserable mindset that people have in Alabama could be difficult for you, especially if you're coming from South Florida, where people here are not afraid to flaunt their money. So one parable that I use for people who ask me if they should move to Alabama is TSM, Towns of Similar Misery. For example, there are towns in Florida where you can buy a house for $80,000. Would you move to Lake Butler, Pahokee, Belle Glade, Immokalee, or Arcadia? If you ask somebody from South Florida, would you move to Immokalee, Arcadia, or Pahokee? They would laugh and say absolutely not. So there are places in South Florida that have Alabama prices, but if you told somebody in South Florida to move there, their answer would definitely be a redundant and immediate no. So why would you move to another state of similar misery? 5 years ago, when I moved to Alabama, my acquisition power of housing multiplied by 3. The house that was $100,000 in Southwest Florida would be something like a $300,000 house in Alabama with the same amount of money. I was getting 3 times the bang for my buck back then. But today, prices in Alabama have increased. Let me give you an example. The house that I bought in Alabama for $65,000 5 years ago, today is going for around $200,000. This house is in the same neighborhood that I used to live in. On top of that, it's got an even smaller yard. It's basically less than a quarter acre. I had almost an acre. You can literally get the same exact house in Citrus County, Florida for the same price these days. Real estate prices in Alabama now have gone up so much that they're on par with some places in Florida. So why would you move to a state that doesn't have beaches, has colder weather, has colder people, your safety is completely jeopardized, when you could probably buy the same thing somewhere in Florida? Now the difference is probably economical opportunity. See, in Alabama, the economical system isn't as harsh in Florida. But if you're retired and living on a fixed income, those costs of living in Florida, like homeowners insurance, HOA fees, and everything else, is racking up so high that it literally leaves you with nothing to live. So despite the fact that housing now costs about the same, it really isn't the same, because things in Florida in general are still more expensive. But if it wasn't a good deal backing up 5 years ago when things cost a third of what they do now in housing, why the crap would it be a better or equivalent deal now? I was in Alabama for 1 year and 1 day. The instant that we were able to sell our house and not have to pay taxes on it, we left. That is because we had bought our house with our net worth, which had never been taxed. So if we sold our house, we would get taxed for the entire amount of the house. And that was a chunk of money that we couldn't afford to lose. It was more than a year's salary. But basically, from the moment we moved in Alabama, the day we moved into our house, things were nasty. And by the time that we were 6 months into it, we were terrified and wanted to leave. We had to wait an entire year because we figured we couldn't lose $30,000 or $40,000 in taxes plus real estate fees. On top of that, our real estate transaction was a nightmare when we went to leave Alabama, where the people moved into our house, changed the locks on our house, literally moved into our house, but never wired us the money, because the laws of real estate in Alabama are a complete nightmare. There really wouldn't be enough time on this video to elaborate on it, but real estate laws in Alabama are very bad, which means if you move to Alabama, perhaps buying the house may be easy, but when it comes time for you to sell that house, you have no idea the nightmare that awaits you. And we already knew that going into it, and we still got burned in a lot of ways because the state's real estate laws are really bad. On top of that, in Alabama, local governments work in what I call a clan. Lawyers, realtors, judges, law enforcement are all part of the same team. They all know each other. They all work in conjunction. And if one of them wants your property or has a friend that wants to buy that house, you're going to be in a lot of trouble trying to sell that property, because once everybody caves in on you, you don't have anywhere to wiggle to. Once everything starts to crumble around you, you're doing everything at the threat of violence to get things done. Now, I'm not much of a pushover. It takes a lot to walk away from everything that's yours when somebody's trying to take it, which means that you're probably going to be tempted to use violence on a level you've never had to use before, just to do things that shouldn't require violence. So if you do move to Alabama, just know that if you're taking a net worth with you, that net worth isn't safe in Alabama. Alabama is a place that's like the Wild West, where if people want to take things from you, they will. And if there's something to be taken, there's going to be somebody trying to take it. Now, it isn't much different than that here in Florida when it comes to economic things. People here are definitely cutthroat, but in Alabama, there is definitely an area of life where you have to be very careful doing things that perhaps don't really require that in other places. So if you're willing to jeopardize your safety for affordability, then perhaps Alabama may work for you. But it isn't just that. It isn't just the safety. It isn't just the cost. Yes, economically things are going to be better for you. Yes, your safety is going to be jeopardized. But for me, there's something that is priceless. Because everybody in Alabama is living under the fear and pressure of society, you can't be yourself. If I want to go get Mexican food at 2 in the morning here in Florida, I can go to any taco truck in the hood, and I don't have to worry about my safety. I have to use common sense, but I don't have to worry about getting gunned down outside a freaking grocery store at 2 in the morning. It's that freedom of mind that I can go anywhere, anytime I want. I can wear anything I want. I can do anything I want, and I don't have to live under this freaking curtain of mystery in Alabama where you have to move differently. You can't act the way you want to act. You can't talk the way you want to talk. You have to pretend to be somebody you're not. You have to pretend that you are living in a way you're not. And I don't do that. Being from South Florida, everybody here has the freedom of expression. You can be whoever you want in Florida, and it isn't a problem. Here in Florida, you got people that want to be crackheads on the side of the road. Nobody gives a crap. If you want to wear a hat, if you want to wear, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want here in Florida. Nobody is going to socially judge you for being who you are. And I think the biggest price tag that you're going to pay isn't economical. It isn't safety. It's your personality, your uniqueness, that now you can't be the person you are or you want to be because you have to cater the person you are to your environment for your safety or for other reasons like social pressure. And I don't like that. And if you're the type of person that's outgoing like me, that has a vibrant personality, you're not going to do very well in a place where people have to mold their personalities for their safety, for their social status. Alabama really is a miserable place, and that miserable mindset starts to affect the way you have to move in a day-to-day life, and I can't tolerate that. I am the way I am, and I'm not going to have other people impose upon me the way I have to live socially because you don't like it. And then the icing on the cake with living in Alabama is religious hypocrisy. Despite the fact it's a dangerous state, despite the fact people are full of hate, despite the fact you even have to live under segregation laws, all of these horrible things exist, then these people actually believe they're religious. They actually believe that they're righteous people. They believe that their way of living makes them better than other people. Religious hypocrisy is like the icing on the cake for living in Alabama, a society that's immoral, dangerous, unsafe, disgusting, and full of hate. And then they have the hypocrisy to try to think that they're better than other people as if their situation wasn't the worst that exists. For me, living in Alabama was a nightmare, and I would advise anybody that's considering moving to Alabama to do one of the following things. Make more money in a larger city. Instead of living in one of these little towns like Melbourne or Naples that doesn't have any opportunity, try moving to a larger city like Fort Lauderdale or Sarasota, where you're going to have more opportunities. Yes, things are going to continue to get more expensive, but at least you'll have a better opportunity to make more money. And while that just means that you're cranking up the economical pressure, it may be enough to keep you busy, and perhaps you can find better opportunities if you work a lot. Now, if you don't have the opportunity to work more, to make more like young people should, you're a retired person and you need affordability, cost of living in general in Alabama may be more affordable than Florida, but housing isn't. So if you're buying a house in Alabama right now, it really isn't a deal. It was when I bought, and even then I ran away from it. From my personal perspective, I would rather be homeless in Florida than housed in Alabama. And that's not a far stretch. When we left Alabama, they took my house, changed the locks, and didn't give me the money. Me and my wife were literally homeless in Florida, but we were happier sleeping in the parking lot in our truck than we were in Alabama, worrying about our safety, worried about African American gangs, and worried about the Klan. And last time I mentioned this on a video, a lot of people got offended. Am I lying? Because if what I'm saying is true, then shut the crap up. If I made this up and it was a lie, then you could get mad at me. But if it's the truth, it's the truth. While living in Alabama, there were two things that terrorized our life every single day: African American street gangs and the Klan. Those were the two things that made living in Alabama the most dangerous. If I was lying, you could be mad at me, but if it's the truth, shut up. Those were the two most terrifying aspects of living in Alabama: dealing with the Klan, which is real, and dealing with African American gangs that are always trying to victimize you because you're an outsider. And they feel because you're an outsider, the law enforcement isn't going to protect you. And if you think that my perspective is based on some super sensitive liberal ideology, there are plenty of white Americans who have moved to Alabama and sent me emails and shared their stories on my channel who went through the same exact thing we did. I was born in Cuba in an oppressive regime, and my experience in Alabama was worse than that. Go figure. This video is probably a really sad reality call to anybody thinking that they're going to move to Alabama and escape the rat race. Look, when I left to Alabama, at first I felt relieved. Economically, all this pressure came off me, and I was able to not have to worry about day-to-day expenses like I do in Florida. But very soon, that fear, economical fear, was replaced with an even bigger fear, a fear for my safety and that of my family. Racial tensions in the United States aren't getting any better. In fact, the rest of the United States is starting to become like Alabama, so don't think things are going to get better down there. In Alabama, people are literally burning your house down. In Alabama, cities like Birmingham have a homicide rate 4 times higher than Chicago. You've heard people talk about Chicago's dangerous and gang infected. In Birmingham, Alabama, your chances of becoming a victim of a homicide are 4 times higher than Chicago. Many people think that the hate from the days of slavery is gone in Alabama. Look at it this way. It's not like the hate from Alabama has gone away. It's been bottled up and ready to explode since then. And don't think that many of the problems that we're experiencing now in Florida, like high cost of living and homelessness, aren't starting to become a problem in Alabama as well. Basically, everything that we've talked about on today's video is honest and not an exaggeration. Could you move to a better neighborhood than I did? Sure. Could you end up living in a better area than I did? Absolutely. But that doesn't change the fact that if you're coming from South Florida, moving to Alabama is a definite downgrade. Moving to a state of hate and violence in a time of unrest like we're living in today is absolutely one of the worst decisions you're ever going to make in your life. The final piece of information that I want to leave you with is that when you combine all metrics of public health, overdoses, homicides, and natural causes of death, Southern Alabama has the lowest life expectancy of anywhere in the United States. The moment that you move to Alabama, whether it's by a homicide or whether it's by bad health or whatever the crap happens to you there, you're knocking 10 years off your lifespan. Let me just say this one last time. The moment that you move to Alabama, you are on average losing 10 years of lifespan. Sure, Mississippi and Louisiana have higher homicide rates and violent rates, but when you combine everything together, nowhere else in the United States will shave more years off your life than living in Alabama. All of these human health metrics combined equal 10 years of your lifetime. So just think about this. Are you willing to give up 10 years of your lifespan to live somewhere more affordable? Most of us know the answer to that is definitely no. And real estate prices in Alabama today have become absolutely absurd. When we came back to Florida, we depleted all of our money. I had to go out there and get my GED. My wife got a real estate license. And while some of the things that we have done have failed here in Florida, not everything we've done has been successful. Economically, returning to Florida was very challenging, and we have lost our net worth since we moved back. But I haven't lost my peace of mind. Our parents still live in Florida. Once our parents are not here, we may move to another state, maybe Pennsylvania. Can you stop scratching that dang? Come here. Get it, baby. Come here. You little wagging dog. I'm trying to make a video. You want to smell the microphone? You want to smell the microphone? I'm trying to make a video and she's like attacking a pillow. Get off the pillow. I'm making a damn video. Get a dog. And instead of moving to Alabama, get a dog. Just get a dog and you'll be happier, okay? Find a way of making your current life in Florida happier. Get a dog. If you're allergic to dogs, get a hypoallergenic breed. Consider getting a dog and see if that makes your life in Florida better. All I know is that when I lived in Alabama, we were surrounded by violence. It was all the way around us. Now that I'm back in Florida, I'm more at ease. I'm more peaceful. I don't have to carry weapons everywhere I go. I don't have to own an arsenal. Me and my wife talk about leaving Florida all the time. Perhaps somewhere in Pennsylvania, maybe something in Texas. We don't know exactly where we're going to end up. We're going to eventually have to leave Florida at some point in our lifetime to be able to be more economically stable. But I can guarantee you that when we leave Florida, the deep south is going to be crossed off our list. Louisiana, Mississippi, all these southern states are a pile of garbage. You have to move somewhere where you can at least feel safe when you're sleeping at night and not need a dang arsenal to go to sleep. When you're going to sleep worried about your safety, at that point, you're not living anymore. When you're worried about getting hurt while you're sleeping or somebody kicking down the door while you're sleeping, at that point, you're not living life at all. You're not living, you're existing. So, yes, eventually we do plan on leaving the state of Florida because of the economical situation here, but it's not going to happen right away. We know it has to happen, but it's not going to happen right away for us. And when it does happen, can you leave that dang pillow alone? You're breaking my dang pillow. Don't rush moving to Alabama. With these real estate prices, even staying in Florida is going to be costing you the same. Like I said, when I moved to Alabama, it was an incredible deal. It's not a deal anymore. So what's the point of moving there?